Welcome, everyone. This is Mariusz Konieczny. I am chatting with Eric Appelman of Aduro Clean Technologies. Eric, thank you very much for joining me.
Pleasure.
Eric, there was a press release from Aduro not too long ago, a few weeks ago, that you joined the company. And so I was wondering if you could tell my audience who you are first.
Yeah. Well, Eric Appelman, 59. I'm a Dutch citizen. I have been working all of my life in the chemical industry in a great variety of companies. Most recently, as a director of the largest innovation campus that is in Europe, which has more than 3,000 professionals and more than 120 companies, all obsessively working, I shall say, on the future of the chemical industry, which is all about sustainability. One of them was Aduro. They dropped by 2 years ago, and I was very, very fascinated. Obviously, they had work to do, but 2 years later, I felt I was ready to join them. So that is a little bit my background.
Okay, so you work for an innovation campus.
Yeah.
I assume it's Camelot.
It is, the Brightlands Camelot campus, if you want to call
Right.
it that.
So you have a stable job with them, and now you're joining a startup. That's what it looks like from the outside, right?
Yeah.
That's a pretty risky move. What's going through your head? Why would you make a move like this?
Well, to begin with, if you are in innovation, which I have pretty much been all along my career, you also have to innovate yourself every now and then. So after 6 years, you have seen a lot of new things. And if anyone were to review my LinkedIn page, you will see that I stick around long enough to harvest from my own mistakes. But at the same time, I also make sure that I do keep myself sharp. And that is one of the drivers. But the overwhelming driver is, of course, that I honestly believe that the technology that Aduro is sitting upon is a game changer. And this is something that could really change the landscape of how we deal with raw materials and waste at the same time.
You said that you were introduced to Aduro 2 years ago.
Yeah.
What kind of progress did you see? Because you said there needed to be a lot of work. What did you see during those 2 years?
Well, 2 years ago, there was it was a bit earlier than that, but sort of a discovery moment. We're having some really exciting chemistry. But then, of course, if you start to work with waste, and they had before worked on crude oil, heavy crude oils, and on vegetable oils. But if you started to work with waste, life becomes a lot more complicated, because if you look in your waste bin, you see what sort of things we all throw away together. And you just have to demonstrate that the whole thing works. The other thing you have to understand is, okay, now it is nice I have found a way to do this reaction, but now I have to think about how I would like to do that in a factory, in a commercial scale. And they had taken quite a few steps in the last 2 years to see how that would work. And the answers were all encouraging. So now you basically say, okay, we're further down the road. We have a lot more certainty that this is going to work. There's still work to be done. But in the end of the day, I felt sufficiently convinced to make the jump.
And since you've been in this industry for a long time, and your prior job was innovation in the chemical industry, what kind, how does Aduro's technology compare to what is out there already?
The beauty of the Aduro technology is that it can eat a great variety of plastics, and people may not even notice, but among all the plastic bags and plastic articles that we use and then throw away, they are made from a great variety of products that are all optimized for a certain functionality, and that is great. The average plastic product is a miracle of engineering and designing the properties. But of course, it makes life complicated when you get out of that, because then if you have the mixture of all of that, you have to either completely unravel it, which is impossible, or you have to find technologies that can eat it all, or at least as much as you can. You cannot sort everything to the last gram. The second thing is that in the Aduro process, you do actually a couple of things in one go that in other process routes have to be done in multiple steps, each requiring additional capex, more operation, more raw materials. So by that, you design a very short route from essentially that mixture of waste in one step to a valuable commodity at the end of the day. And that is really where the difference is. And it is also a variety of the pre-treatments that can be shortened, but overall that makes it possible. Because in the end of the day, you're talking waste. You don't want to waste a lot of money on that in order to get to something good.
A lot of people, a lot of us, when we use plastic, we use it, let's say if we drink some kind of juice and then we put it in a recycling bin. And I guess the general public thinks that plastic is recycled, but when you start studying the industry, you realize that very little is recycled. Most of it ends up in a landfill. And why is it like this? Like, why are we so misinformed about the situation?
Well, to begin with, the landfill command, that is a North American phenomenon. In the country where I'm from, landfill is forbidden. So we don't do that anymore. And I think that is just the first step. Let's not fill it. Then in the past, a lot was burned. Now, you can call that a little bit of low value recycling, but as long as you recover the energy, it is a first step. But having said that, it is of course not keeping the carbon dioxide from fossil sources out of the atmosphere. And then it is all about, well, how efficiently can we reuse it? So I do not precisely how the situation is in Canada. I know in Holland we are collecting our plastic waste by the curbside, and it's picked up every, Tuesday morning for me. And a lot of that is actually recycled, and it is creeping up. Now, if you think of recycling as I will just melt it and cast a new product from it, which we call mechanical recycling, that has its limitations, because if you do that with mixtures, you basically get the lowest average in terms of properties. And a lot of the low quality outlets pretty much being filled because those things wear out very quickly. If you're going to more sophisticated reuses or chemical reuses, as what we are working on, that sometimes comes with additional requirements. You do see that there is a definite trend that the portfolio or the suite of technologies that is available to repurpose that plastic waste is actually increasing, and it is then becoming less and less burning, less and less incineration, definitely a lot less landfilling, and more turning into products. But it is you have to build up that whole industry, and you have to build it up, but it's going there.
For those that are not aware of, 2025 is the year that the companies have to do something. I was wondering if you could take maybe a few minutes to explain why 2025 is important and what it means.
Yeah, to me as a European, 2025 does not mean so much. I think this is very much a national legislature environment thing. But maybe I can comment on the general trends. In Europe, for instance, there is coming a set of regulations that say that in applications X, Y, Z, as from date A, B, C, you are going to have 35% of recycled content. And that is tightened a little bit all the time. Another thing that is coming is, we have to pay for carbon dioxide emissions from many sources. And for instance, in the Netherlands, or in Europe actually, emissions from incineration plants are going to come under that regime as well. So what we see in general all around the world albeit different per country and per legislation, you see a steady tightening of the screws that will either work through the emission side, or it will be around a mandatory quota for utilization. Another thing that is, for instance, the case in the Netherlands is that every company that puts plastic packaging in the market, so we are talking here about branded goods companies, they have to pay, I think it is €1,000 per ton, to a central waste processing institute. And they take care with that money of collecting it, recycling it, doing something good with it, with a mission to make it lower. So I think rather than talking about one particular year, I think we shall talk about a multitude of screws that being tightened in different countries and all aimed to better recycle, less landfill, less incinerate, less emissions, all that sort of thing.
Okay, great. So thank you for this. So now that you are with Aduro, did you relocate from Europe to Canada to work with Aduro?
No, I am actually now working in Canada and sitting in Canada, but I'll be going to Europe after this week. And I think that also reflects that what we are doing is something we do for the world. And for instance, one of my tasks is to engage with partners, companies that are on the same mission as us, but do other things in the value chain and that want to work with us. Well, there is just as many of those in Europe as they are in America. And that is why I will serve the European market with my physical presence there.
And that's exactly what I was going to ask you, like what your role exactly is right now. So you're saying you're engaging with different companies about this technology. I was wondering, are a lot of companies already aware of this technology? Or if they're not, how do you like approach them? How do the conversations go?
The conversations go very often like, okay, you are having this issue. And I like to take it very much from the customer side. And what are you struggling with, what you're trying to achieve? And how could our technology work? Aduro is known, but you can never be known enough. And so I was in a conference, for instance, 2 weeks ago, somewhere in Europe, and I met several people and I said, okay, what are you doing? And sometimes it is a company that is in the petrochemical area, and somebody that is producing plastics, but feels the pressure that is in the value chain to use more recycled plastics. Well, then he better has to find a way to actually take in recycled stuff and to secure recycled feedstock. But it can also be from a packaging company who says, well, I'm trying to sell my packaging concept to branded goods manufacturer X, and I would like to tell that branded goods manufacturer X that my piece of packaging is recyclable. And then we can say, well, we might well have the route that is best for it, as we believe it. And why don't you work with us to demonstrate just that and make sure that what you put in the market is the right thing?
That's interesting. You know, when I first, of course, I'm involved with Aduro because I'm in investing and I'm a shareholder in Aduro. But the first time I introduced Aduro to myself and to others, the first thing is, this is too good to be true. If this technology was working, I'm sure you went through the same thing yourself.
Absolutely, yes.
And so when you
wrote it with my feet in the end of the day,
so I guess if you went through the same thing, and I went through the same thing, what was your journey like that made you go from this is too good to be true to, man, this works?
Yeah. Well, very simple results. And for instance, one thing we do with customers is that we let them send a mixture of plastic waste that they care to have processed. Sometimes we are actually working with a waste company and they say, well, yeah, we'll put it in the pot and we watch what is coming out. And then it is too good to be true, as you say. That is what you see. It is an amazing result. And I'm quite honest about that. I'm still pleasantly surprised every day.
And I'm sure when you are approaching various companies with this solution, they go through the same thing. This is too good to be true. I don't believe this can work, right?
Yes, and of course there is work to do. And because before you then reach the step that you have something of refinery scale, and then you have to make sure that it's all working safe and in good order and it keeps working. That is the work you have to do. But the underlying fundamental chemistry, it works. It's undeniably there.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I want to welcome you to Aduro Clean Technologies. And is there anything else that you would like to share with my audience that maybe we didn't discuss or I didn't ask you, but you would like to share?
No, nothing that comes spontaneously to my mind. I'm of course only here for a month, but as I said, I'm still the kid in the candy shop. And all I can say that I just sincerely hope that you can be as enthusiastic as I am about being aligned with this wonderful route to a sustainable future for the world.
Well, thank you very much for doing this.
My pleasure. I'm honored. Thank you.